Hi, everybody. Welcome to Journey to the Parliament with your host, Ed The Pagan. And I am going to be joined today by Reverend Don Lewis. The Parliament of World Religions will be meeting in Chicago, August 14th through the 18th of 2023, a little more than 14 months away. And it's very exciting. It'll be the 130th anniversary or 9th convening of this event. And it happened for this first and second time in the city of Chicago in 1893 and 1993. And we'll again return to Chicago in 2023. And we're very excited about having it. Hi, Reverend Don.
Hello.
And so for those of you who don't know, and I'm expecting there are many people in our audience, thank you for joining us, that may not know who Reverend Don Lewis is. And why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm Reverend Don Lewis. I am the Chancellor and First Priest of the Correllian Tradition. I am the co-founder of Witch School. I am the production head for Magic TV, among other distinctions that I have done over the many years I've been in the pagan community, going back to 1974.
Wow,
and arguably a little farther.
I gotcha. So what is it makes you feel like you want to attend the Parliament of World Religions from your position? Why should you be attending?
Well, there are two things that I would say to that. I mean, there's the answer, why should I be attending and why would somebody want to attend? I think for most people, this is a wonderful spiritual experience. It will introduce you to people from many other religions. It's very educational in that way. It is very uplifting in that way. For me, however, as the head of a church in my own right, it's a somewhat different situation. All of those things are still there, but there's also the political aspect of the parliament. And for anyone who is prominent in clergy, that actually is one of the most important aspects. The people who come to the parliament are community leaders in their communities, in their different religions. And by meeting each other, by getting to know each other just that little bit that they get to during the parliament, by seeing the different presentations, their opinions are shaped by these experiences and hopefully shaped for the better. So particularly as a pagan, it's important for me and for us to be there to give these people a good impression of who we are, rather than letting them pick it up, for want of a better way to put it, on the streets. It's much better to actually meet us, to actually have a sense of who we are, that they will then take home to their congregations around the world, and their opinions will shape local laws. In some cases, they are very prominent clergy people whose opinion will directly shape their local community, and some they're less prominent, but the people they touch through their ministries will carry forward those opinions. And so if they become more enlightened through their parliament experience, it's better for everyone. So for most people going to parliament, it's a consuming experience, but for the people who are representing churches, it's a presenting experience.
That's very interesting. And this year, you're leading an effort to make representation more inclusive for pagans. Can you talk about that?
We are hoping through the Correllian Church to register at least 100 people to attend Parliament. We are currently at 31. We are hoping to be able to act together toward creating that good impression on the world, because the world's religious leaders, to a large extent, will be gathered in one place. Certainly not every religion is represented at the parliament, but a vast number of them are. And by having a large number of positive people present interacting, the likelihood of their coming away with a good impression is much higher.
And I understand you're also doing fundraising for representation. Can you talk a little bit about that?
We are doing fundraising to help with representation. We are hoping to obtain a sponsorship for the parliament. We're hoping to have a booth at the parliament. We have a number of items that are for sale, with the proceeds going to our Parliament mission. You can find them through Correllian.com at our Pagans to the Parliament page. These include a number of books that have been donated by their authors, with the proceeds going to the Parliament Project, and also some jewelry donated by its creator going to the Parliament Project, and more things as time goes by.
Being visited by a spider.
Well, it's a good time of day for it.
It is a good time of day for it, as long as he doesn't bite me. He's a little spider; he doesn't eat much. And now back to the to our happily good episode. We never know what's going to happen in these interviews. So you've been involved with Parliament in one way or another. You've either heard about it or been involved directly with it almost since its beginning. Can you tell us
the modern Parliament?
And we'll get back to that. But what is probably your most memorable moment at the Parliament as an attendee or as a participant?
I would have to say it was probably the Wicca as a Global Religion panel that we did 2 parliaments ago. And we presented basically the results of the Global Wicca Summit we had done. We had a panel consisting of myself and Lady Stephanie, the first priestess of the Correllian Tradition, also Lady Belladonna and Lord Dusty from the Aquarian Tabernacle Tradition, and Selena Fox from Circle. And the panel was very well received. The crowd was overflowing the room. It was a wonderful reception. And it is that more than anything that makes it a good memory and a strong memory.
And that really did something to set, I guess, Wicca into action. Can you talk to a little bit about what that did for Wicca versus paganism versus everything else?
Well, I certainly the goal is to strengthen, for want of a better way to put it, to strengthen the Wiccan identity, to strengthen our ability to work together, and to let those pagans who really are not, who can be very different from Wicca, to let them have their own space, but to strengthen our space in being who we are. As opposed to trying to fit in with a different agenda. The terms pagan and Wiccan are not synonymous, and some people consider them to not go together. And this has certainly been a change in my experience over the last 30 years, but not necessarily everyone's. And we wanted to emphasize that Wicca is its own thing. It is its own world religion, totally separate from whatever it shares with the pagan movement. It is a movement in its own right, and that's important to see.
And so getting identity as that was important. And there's another identity piece. We saw it occurred that basically in 2015, you guys all wore your uniforms and actually had somebody walk the runway, I guess you call it, or the opening assembly at Utah in 2015. Can you talk a little bit about that?
In the opening procession, Lady Stephanie Neal, who was then our first elder, was allowed to walk in that opening procession, which was certainly a highlight for us of our parliamentary experiences. And we were very proud. It was the year of the woman, and she was magnificent in walking in that procession. We did show up to the opening plenary in our full robes, which caused quite a stir, and there are some wonderful photographs of it. Lady Alyssa and I believe Lady Elizabeth were bearing our banner at the head of our own procession through the hallways, and it was very gratifying to see people's reaction to our presence. People were very complimentary.
So the Correllian tradition, in one form or another, has been involved with the modern Parliament since its inception.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, the Correllian tradition, the modern parliament begins in 1993. Um, and we were involved primarily through you, well, pretty much exclusively through you, but I was involved peripherally in that we were talking often daily. You would call and give me updates from the parliament offices and later from the parliament floor. So in a manner of speaking, I was experiencing it. But we maintained a presence at every modern parliament since. You have been to all of them. I started going with Australia and have been to the subsequent parliaments. And every year we've had more Correllians attending. And it's usually our most, I don't exactly want to say our most serious clergy, but our clergy who have an eye on a career that will involve them in interfaith issues. But also just people who want to attend. It is a wonderful spiritual experience from the floor of the parliament. As I say, this parliament, we're hoping to have at least 100 people, and we're already at more or less a third of the way there. And so I think we're going to have quite a presence. We have done a number of presentations with different Correllians at Parliament on things such as our peace campaign. I mentioned the Wicca as a Global Religion panel. I've been present on, for example, the Men Who Love the Goddess panel, which was in Australia. So we've had quite a presence and quite an involvement with the modern parliament. And what I think it's done is it's really helped our clergy to have a global outlook. And we are a global tradition, but sometimes you see your local area more than the world. And I think that going to parliament really opens people's eyes to the fact that we are a global community.
I think that is true. And and so a lot of the story of the Correllians is the growing of the Correllians that have a certain, I've noticed a certain aspect of being growing globally along with the parliament. When we started in 93, you had 5 temples throughout Northern Illinois. And as you go into this one, it looks like you're going to have representing a truly global community.
That is true. Every parliament that we have had a presence at, we have also grown in the local community after. When parliament was in South Africa, Correllianism in South Africa exploded and is still an important part of the tradition today. When parliament was in Australia, there was a growth after that. When parliament is anywhere, it tends to be good for the Correllian community. Partly, I think, because we tend to cover what we do there and people see us there. And I think it excites people. And we try to share the experience with them.
Now, the Correllians do something different than most other traditions in that you have a media branch.
Yes.
And can you talk about the fact that you cover events, including the parliament? And why do you do that, separate of, say, mainstream videos or even the parliament's own exercises?
Well, we cover events for 2 reasons, really. The first is to share them with our membership so that they have some feeling of what it's like to be there. Particularly before the internet and when the internet first started to become a thing, most of our people had relatively little exposure to these actual events. So to see them in video or read about them in print was a big thing for a lot of people who, in many cases, had a solitary practice, might be geographically isolated, and it gave them a vicarious experience of the different festivals, the different events that we were covering. And I think even today, this is probably the most important reason we do this. helps people to feel that they are part of that larger community, even if they cannot personally go out to these events. And, let's face it, nobody can go to all of them. Even the people who have their particular festival they go to every year usually have one, maybe two that they're able to do, unless they're a merchant. We try to bring them a wider selection of experiences, including things like the Parliament, to help with their growth and their feeling of being, part of a dynamic community. And again, many people in this community are socially or geographically isolated. They may be following a solitary path. This helps them to connect with people, to feel connected to the wider community. That's I think, the most important aspect, at least in the moment of what we do. The other is historical. By covering all these things, we're also preserving a record of them for the future. And this is also one of the reasons we do so many interviews. If you go to magictv.com, which is where we put many of our videos, you'll find interviews with pagan leaders who are no longer living in the physical world. And in some cases, it may be the only interview they ever did. Not all of them, because some of them had many interviews, but there are others who, if you want to see them speaking in their own words, that's the place you're going to find it. If you want to see, well, take, for example, the St. Louis Pagan Picnic. We've been going there 20 years or more, and we've been filming there since
2006.
2006. So if you want to see the history of this event evolving, it's there. If you want to see the people who are present, many of them are there. If you want to have a feeling for what the pagan community was like in 2006 or 2010 or today, you can get some feeling from those videos. And if you're looking back 50 years from now, it's going to be a far more important record. And one of the reasons that we were motivated to create that record is that back in Chicago in the 90s, I found that many people had the idea that, as some people sometimes say, if there are no pictures, it didn't happen. People I'd known, things I'd done, I found people were skeptical of, because I hadn't published lots of photos about it. And I started making it a habit to do lots of photos, to do video. Partly for that reason, to establish that, yes, in fact, I was there. For example, I was talking the other day about the Helms Amendment in, I believe, 1988, and that I had been in Washington when that particular drama ended, when the bill was not passed. But I have no video or photos to prove that. But today, if I were to go to Washington for such a thing, there would be a video record. So these are some of the reasons that we are so heavy in media.
Absolutely. And so, and now we move into Pagan World TV, which will make it even easier to cover such events. I'm very excited about that.
Farther.
So people, they can either become part of our group delegation and also donate directly to have us represent the community, or our section of the community.
Yes.
We're looking for donations. That's going to be a big endeavor, about $5,000 for representation, I understand, a little bit more.
The booth in the end, it will be more, but I believe it's $5,000 for the sponsorship.
Mm-hmm. Booth is $1,800.
Yeah.
So there
are some significant costs.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, I have no doubt that we'll be able to make them. But if you want to help, you can go to Correllian.com and find both ways to help, to register yourself to be under the group discount that we have from the Parliament, or to buy items in support of the Parliament mission, the Traditions Parliament mission, or just to make a donation.
So terrific. So we've been talking to Reverend Don Lewis of the Correllian Natives Church, which is Correllian Natives Wiccan tradition. And as he speaks about the Parliament today, thank you for spending some time with us today. And you should go to Correllian.com. You can join the journey to the Parliament, or come on this show and tell us your journey. And we'll be covering more soon. Thank you, Reverend Don.
Thank
and have
you.
and let's make this a great day, folks.